Hi, this is Frid from the Joy of Syntax and English in Colour. The noise that you're hearing in the background is produced by my fur baby Rudolph the Black-Nosed Canine. He's pounding away and I don't know when he will stop, and so I won't wait around for that. And since he is the center of my universe, I won't kick him out either. Oh, he's getting quiet. That's good. Okay, so today I was going to talk about the strategies that I used to write the book, but actually I wanted to expand a bit more on the idea of that I shared yesterday, that humanity rests on three pillars, namely sex and food and language. And why I boil down language to syntax, first grammar, then syntax. Now, let's start with the last first. When people think about language, they tend to think about words, because that is the most visible or audible part of a language. And we're always worried about learning new words. However, a word only has meaning potential. It doesn't mean anything on its own. A word needs to be in a relationship with other words and with a content, and with a context. And that is enabled, this connection is mostly enabled by syntax. And that's why syntax is really, really important. It's really the essence of language. Yes, words are important, but without syntax, they are nothing. And so that's why I think that when you talk about language, you want to boil it down. Syntax is the essence. I think pronunciation is also very important, but the core, like I often say that syntax is like rhythm in music. Notes on their own don't mean anything. They need to be in relationship with each other, and somehow rhythmic matrix is making that happen. I think the same is true for syntax. It's on its own, it's not visible. It's visible because we see the patterns that the words fall into. So it's a very exciting thing to study. So we've got that covered now. When we so the joy of syntax representing the joy and the importance of language in general. Yeah, and then food and sex. Well, because of sex we're here, and we all know that we think about that a lot. And sex slash love, I think, slash love, I mean. Yeah, I always practice it with my kids. My students, the difference between sex and sax and socks and socks. And then slash and slosh. Yeah, anyway, getting sidetracked. Back on track now. And I actually think that sex and food and language have that in common, that they can connect us with love and each other and with the essence of life, and they can also disconnect us. So they can all be used badly or wrongly, and then they don't serve love and connection. But if they're used correctly, they serve love and connection. And the enjoyable thing to me is that, I talked about this early morning teaching session that I, for a semester I needed to be, I needed to teach grammar at 8:15 in the morning, which was not a good time for the students. And so somehow this idea that I was developing the joy of syntax for them, and that humanity rests on these three pillars, started out as a joke, but then I saw the wisdom in it, and then I actually fell in love with that. And I wanted to talk about that. Before I move on, I felt that I hadn't done justice to this in the last video. And I enjoy this in retrospect so much, how a joke, a spontaneous joke, reveals so much of my truth for me, and how that then became a very serious and yet a joyful endeavor. Yeah, and as I told you in the last video, I had developed these drafts. First, I have these handouts, then I put the handouts together into a sort of reader, and then the reader started to be called Joy of Syntax, and then the reader was sort of the manuscript for or a rough draft for my book. And then in 2015 I went through a crisis, and I decided that it was time for something new, and I decided that I was simply going to put this book together now that I had been wanting to write. And this happened in an interesting way. I actually, you know what? I'm going to talk about the strategy tomorrow. I'm going to talk to you about how when I decided to actually make the book happen, I just thought I need a publisher. And I wanted to self-publish, but I didn't want to totally self-publish. I wanted to have the support of a publishing company that gave me the freedom of self-publishing, but also gave me the framework. And the interesting thing was that I'm a huge Chris Carr fan, and I always get her newsletter. I'm subscribed to her newsletter, and I always read it. And she invited people to a Hay House Writers Conference in New York. And it was going to be under $500. And I thought, oh, that's really not that expensive. And I get to meet Chris Carr and all these cool people. And then I looked at it and I thought, okay, I need the flight to New York. I need the hotel in New York. Then I need to pay for the conference, so that jacks up the price on that. And then, all in all, and then the interesting thing was that people that signed up for the workshop could win a contract with Balboa Press, which is a division of Hay House. It's the self-publishing division of Hay House. And then I looked at prices for these contracts with Balboa Press, and I saw that, you know, a basic contract was around $1,200. And I thought, wow, that's actually cheaper than me flying to New York. And then I thought, you know what, I don't really need to go to a beginner's writer's workshop because I have a manuscript and I have a gazillion of notes. So why don't I just buy this contract with Balboa Press? So I called them up and asked them whether they would publish my book. And they said, sure, we will. And, you know, I have this very particular, I told them about my particular idea. I devised this color parsing method. Using the highlighter colors that you can buy at the average writer's writing supplies or office supplies store. And so this is not such an easy job. This isn't an easy job for a printer. And so, yeah, they said they would work with me around that. And so I bought this contract with them and started work. And I was so silly. I thought that I would be done in 2 months because I had a finished manuscript and I had all these additional notes, and I thought it would be a piece of cake to just write this up. Well, it didn't take me 2 months. It took me 6 months. I took a 4-week break in between, so it was a 7-month period, but it was 6 months of writing. But then I got it done, and it seemed, yeah, well, it was so much longer than I had anticipated, but looking back, I actually think it was quite fast. Yeah, so now I was going to talk to you about the strategies that I used to finish the book. I'm going to do that in the next video because I love the story of how I, you know, read a newsletter by someone who is working in the field of nutrition and health, and then she helped me get this idea of buying a book contract with Balboa Press. See you in the next video for which strategy I used to finish the book. Talk to you soon, and thank you for watching this. Bye-bye.